Hi guys, so it is Thankful Thursday again with me, Kel, and also Rachel as usual. So the topic that we have been asked to look at this week is why your eating disorder won't help you and why suicide isn't the answer. And I wondered how I was going to tackle this question this week. I thought that the best thing I could do was talk from my experience and hope that some of you guys can relate to that. So where I kind of wanted to start with this topic was with the question of, is an eating disorder a slow suicide? And that was a question that was asked of me quite early on in the counselling I had. You know, basically I was being asked, was I slowly killing myself? Was that the point of my eating disorder? And I think, in a sense, your eating disorder, well, of course your eating disorder can kill you, and in a sense you're using it to avoid life, because it's very isolating having an eating disorder and you almost live in your own little bubble. But at the same time, now looking back, I can see that my eating disorder, far from being a suicide attempt, a slow suicide attempt, it was really a method by which for me to continue to live. It was my coping mechanism so that I could stay alive, so that I didn't feel the need to kill myself. And in the long term, I became very, very sick from my eating disorder, and it came to the point where the choice was, this is going to kill you or you're going to get better. But I do really think that that's a good question to ask yourself. Is this a coping mechanism to enable you to live? Because I think realising that that's what it is quite useful in your own recovery, because you realise that you do in fact want to be alive. So, your eating disorder not being the answer is kind of the whole point of this. And when I developed anorexia, my belief was very much that anorexia was the answer to all my problems. It would help me feel better, and I would eventually reach a weight, somehow I thought, at which point everything would be fabulous and I'd be happy and I wouldn't have any problems. Now, of course, no weight was ever enough. However low my weight got, it wasn't enough. However many behaviours I engaged in, it was never enough. And by the point I'd lost a considerable amount of weight, my life was consumed by my eating disorder, and I lived and breathed eating disorder. I didn't have any normal interactions. I'd had to leave university. I'd had to stop going out with friends because I was just too physically unwell. And I started this process thinking that my eating disorder was going to help me, but you can see that it wasn't. I was completely alone. I had nothing left in my life. And it got to the point where not only did I have nothing left, but I was becoming more and more physically ill as well. So I had problems with my digestion, which gave me acid reflux, and lots of stomach problems. I was in hospital with bowel problems. I now have osteoporosis. All of those things my eating disorder gave me. But I can assure you that I never once, during the years I was ill with anorexia, I never once felt like it did what it was telling me it was going to do. I never felt happy. I never felt like my problems had been taken away. In actual fact, what did happen was, at the eventual point when I chose to recover, I had to deal with all those issues I was avoiding anyway. So all my eating disorder really did was leave me with medical complications. But of course, for a short while, I can definitely say I wasn't emotionally ready to deal with some of the issues I had. I wasn't ready to face my depression or my anxiety, and in a sense my eating disorder kept me alive. It prevented me from killing myself, basically, as horrible of a thought that is. But that was what it did. It gave me something else to focus on, so I wasn't focused on not wanting to be alive. And so I suppose in a sense my eating disorder gave me time to be ready to deal with it, and in a sense for that I'm grateful, and I'm grateful that I'm still alive, and that even though I have the physical complications, I was able to get out of that and live a healthy life now. And if I'd killed myself instead of reverting to an eating disorder, then I wouldn't have that opportunity. But I am going to have to live with physical complications for forever, and if I hadn't have realised at any point, if I hadn't have had a counsellor to say the exact right thing to make me realise what I was doing, then I might never have turned it round and it might have killed me. That was quite possible. And that's quite possible for anybody out there, whatever your eating disorder is. I mean, a lot of the information around eating disorders leads you to believe that you only die from anorexia, because so many people can die from anorexia. But you can die from electrolyte imbalances caused by purging. You could drop dead from a heart attack, from over-exercising, from being overweight. An eating disorder of any type, if you're a normal weight, you're underweight, you're overweight, it doesn't matter, it can kill you. And at some point you have to make that choice. If you're using your eating disorder to enable you to live, you eventually have to choose to give up your eating disorder and choose to face life, or else it is basically just a slow suicide. I think what was important for me in terms of realising that my eating disorder didn't have the answer, because I like I said, I wasn't ready to admit that until I was quite into recovery, and what helped me was to trust somebody else, and I think that that's really important. If your eating disorder is doing nothing but hurting you, and you know you're having medical complications, or you're feeling isolated, you're not engaging in anything, and you're finally starting to realise that your eating disorder isn't doing what it promised it would do, it isn't helping you, it isn't making you feel better, you don't feel any more in control, you have to trust somebody else to make decisions for you for a short period of time. And for me that was very hard. I tried to be quite an independent person, and I'm quite stubborn, and to hand over control to somebody else, which I suppose was a mixture of my counsellor, in a sense medical professions in terms of my physical health, and also my partner who was my primary carer when I was ill. You have to hand that control over to them, because you're choosing your eating disorder as a way to enable you to live over suicide, and eventually that's not going to work, like I've already said, and you're going to have to give that control to somebody else, because there's going to be no other option left. And basically what I want to say in this video today is, the sooner that you realise this, that your eating disorder is about choosing life over suicide, then the sooner you can kind of go through the process of, you know, trusting somebody other than your eating disorder, realising that perhaps your eating disorder doesn't have all the answers it thinks it does, and going and finding them somewhere else. So I don't know how useful today's video has been, and I know I say that every single week, but I'm going to leave it there because I think I'm at about 10 minutes. I hope you're all well, and I'll see you next week guys. Take care. Bye.